few more minutes here. Kevin,
Hey, Nielsen,
he might be on a call.
can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna say you're quiet. I didn't know if it was on my end or just in general. So just testing my
Can you hear me?
microphone. Yes, gotcha.
It looks like Kevin might be on a call.
Okay.
So go
We'll
ahead
just
and
kind of
get started here. He'll log in when he's
yeah.
available. So as far as design technology, we should all be on desktop connector 16.14. I know there's some older versions, there's some newer versions, there's some test groups that are we're testing out newer versions, but as far as a general, we should all be on 16.14. And if you're not up to that version, go ahead and download that. You don't need, I don't believe you need admin rights for that one, right? Or is it?
No, you'll get it
Oh, there you
from
go.
our SharePoint site. Hey,
Hey,
so this will be the last version of the desktop connector that we download from the SharePoint site. From here on, when we release it, it'll come through company portal. Based on the shit show that happened last week with Autodesk and everything, we were going to try to release 16.15 this week, but I'm going to let Autodesk settle down a little bit. And then we'll probably release it either next week or the week after. So the messaging will be the same. So keep an eye out for the Hazen BIM community and the announcement around it. But the download and install method should be easier on you guys. So if you download it from SharePoint and you install it, you will need administrator access. If you do it through company portal, you will not need that. You just hit install and it does it. The big thing about the 1614 install, I want to make sure everybody ran that reset, the DC reset batch file, and that you ran it as administrator, because with that 1614 install, we changed the location of the cache on your hard drive to the C drive. So by default, the cache location is in the C users folder, which makes it everybody's path unique. And so it creates issues inside the software with broken paths and things because it's looking for your name. So two versions ago, Autodesk allowed us to change the cache location to a different one than what they set. And so we chose C_DC. That way everybody's path is the same. There should be no more broken link issues when you're working on ACC.
Hey, Kevin, do you mind pointing out where that batch file is just to make sure everybody knows?
Yeah. Let me share. So if you've not run it, go to the A drive, Hazen, support bat file, and you're going to come down here Now make sure that don't just go run this. Make sure that you have saved and exited any file that you have open on ACC. That's either inside of the software or out. So if you've got a Word file that you're opening up through the File Explorer and it lives, you're using the desktop connector to open it, make sure you save, close, and get out of all files. You don't have to exit the programs, just get out of the files and close them. And then make sure that you don't have any red dots or sync issues in your desktop connector. Because if you do, you'll lose your work. So once you do that, come over here, right click, run as administrator. You do not have to have admin rights running. It probably will ask you to log in using your Hazen credentials, and then it will run and reset that. It clears your cache, repoints to a new folder that we create, and then sets your cache location to that folder. And obviously, if you need any help, if something doesn't go right or you need help, feel free to reach out. One more thing I'd like to discuss around that. So we've had issues in the past where people will run that reset. Like if you know you've had us walk you through it before, and you're like, hey, I can just go run that reset and see what happens. The issue is that we had a user that didn't clear their issues or back up any issues. So sometimes there's nothing we can do to clear the issues. The only thing we can do is go to your cache and copy out the files so that we don't lose them, and then clear the reset the desktop connector, and then manually restore the files that were having issues. The person did not take that step, and they lost a week's worth of work. So that's awful. I felt terrible for them, but there's nothing, once we do that, there's nothing we can do to recover it. It's gone. So we tried to mitigate that with this reset batch file. It creates these two folders, _DC archive. So now, and I'm going to tell you this, but we don't want you banking on this as a backup. It's more of a disaster recovery. In theory, the batch file should go in any cached files that live in this DC folder. It will copy it to the DC archive before it deletes it in the next reset. That way, if you get into a situation where you forgot to do that, the files should be living in here. And again, it only does the files that were actually archived, which I guess there wasn't any on mine. But we're trying to be resilient here, but it's not foolproof. Let's just put it that way. So don't bank on it. Do your due diligence, make sure that you backed up. So if you had files that were not syncing, go to your cache location, find the file that wasn't syncing, copy it down to your desktop or something, then run the clear or the DC reset. Does anybody have any questions about that process or about how the desktop connector caches files or anything?
Is everybody on 1614? I think we checked this last time, but just to make sure everybody's up to date.
I am guilty of still being on 1612.
Okay.
But I had like 4 deliverables right before I left town. So Kevin, I can get with you later today and
Okay.
step through that.
Yep.
Thank you, sir.
No problem. Anybody else?
I'm actually on 1611.
Okay, so yeah, that was our previous. Not a big deal. That was just our previous release. Let me steal back just for a second. Just want to make sure. So again, just making sure everybody knows where to go look for these announcements. I also want to make sure everybody knows to set their channel notifications. So we want to make sure that those are banner and feed and include replies and things. That way you do get notified when we make these announcements. But yeah, so Hazen MEM community, one news and announcements, and it has all the instructions there on how to upgrade. But obviously, again, if you, Stephen, if you need help, definitely reach out. I do not mind helping at all.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Thank you, Kevin.
Yep.
A lot of good info. Also, remind everyone to look at your access for any updates. I know that Civil 3D has put out this 25.22 update. There was another, what are they called, Kevin? Those gray ones?
Services. Yeah, there's a
The
service in the background.
services.
Yeah, let me. I'm going to give more. I always like more information than not. So let me give you guys a little information on what happened last week. If you had that problem, the reason, and hopefully, so you guys give me and my team grace when this stuff happens and we start having major outages. So 2 years ago, Autodesk changed the way that their license worked. We used to have a license server that we controlled the license on our network. So that means the only time that they went out is when we had an issue with our internal networks. 2 years ago, Autodesk basically took control of those licenses and put them on a cloud service. So in theory, that's good because it no longer relies on our networks. If we go down, not everybody goes down. You can still get access to your license. The problem is that Autodesk sucks and they put out updates that cause issues. So last week they put out an update that basically broke their license server service. So the service is something that runs in the background that is constantly periodically checks for a license. And if it doesn't find it, you don't have access to your software. So I guess about 6-9 months ago, we changed our, maybe less, we changed our workflows on updates, right? So we used to say don't update until we tell you, because we want to test these updates before we release them, because Autodesk fixes some things and breaks others with these updates. The problem is though, is that they'll put an update to the license service, and then you'll need an update to the software to work with that license service. So we changed our policy on updates to we're going to have to just be current. You just need to be current. Well, again, Autodesk breaks things with their updates, and that causes chaos. So last week, you may not have had an issue with this license service because you didn't have the most current license service, which was good in this particular case. But when you update to 15, I think it's 15.16, 15.15 or 15.14 license service, it broke your system. Now they have since fixed it, but I just wanted to give you guys some background on what we're dealing with on our side. So it's not like, hey, you guys are breaking our stuff here. It's a very, very finicky setup, but we have to, right now, we still believe that it's a good idea to keep everything up to date at all times. So if you see an update in here, it's best to do it. And again, that's a little more information than probably what you need, but
Yeah.
it at least gives you guys ideas of what we're dealing with on our side.
Yeah. Thank you, Kevin. That's a good
Yep.
one.
That's all I got.
89 as well. But, all right. Onboarding. Do we have any new employees in this group? Let's see, Iris. Can you give a quick intro?
Hello, I just started in the Austin office under the wastewater group, but I'm interested in onboarding into Civil 3D.
Okay. Yeah,
Oops.
we will be adding you for next week for our onboarding. So welcome to Hazen. All right, we're going to go over a few tips and tricks, shortcut commands, align space, merge layer, block replace, and a variable setting selection and/or display. So let's see how these work. Okay. Screen over. And the first one is align space. First of all, go back to this. There's a link to the spreadsheet of all of these shortcut commands and variable settings. We have a running list of this information. Let me show you where that's located. If you follow the link on the document, this one here, it'll take you to this Excel sheet, and the shortcut commands are here and the variables are on the second page. And the bold ones are the ones that we are currently talking about during that month. Okay, so you can go back and look at those. Let me go ahead. Screen. And let's go ahead and do align space. Align space is basically another command similar to the one that we've shown you previously under our ribbon bar, under the list routines, and it's DV twist. This is just another way of rotating your view of the viewport. DV twist actually rotates the view of how you're seeing in model space, but it rotates your snap angle. Align space does not. So let's go ahead and show you that one. Align space. So it automatically it's jumping right into model space. You notice that I was in paper space, now I'm in model space, and it's asking me to select the 2 points that you want to align. So I'm at endpoint to endpoint, and now the command just jumped to paper space. I'm still within the command, and it's asking me, what do you want to align it with? Well, I want to align that angle to my viewport. So I'm going to select an endpoint to viewport and the other end of it, and you can't see anything, but if you pan it, your view is actually rotated. You see that? My UCS is not rotated. My snap angle is not rotated. Just the DV twist, basically. But it's a perfectly, basically parallel line to your viewport. So that's a kind of a nifty command I wanted to show you guys. Just the different options, you know, just a little bit different than the DV twist. Okay. All right. And this month we're going to talk a lot about survey and survey requests. So we thought, and then also about how to clean up survey files once we get them. So we wanted to include this shortcut command called merge layer. So once you get a survey, some surveyors will not use exactly all the layers provided in our survey request. So we'll have situations like create one here. G dash or existing text, right? Text existing. And you see something like that, and you want to put all that information from the survey into this G text. Super quick way, I right click on this layer and I say I want to merge all the information that's in that layer to, it's going to take me to this pop-up. It says, what do you want to merge it to? I want to put everything in there in this in our GText layer, the Hazen standard GText layer. It'll hit OK. So what happens at that point, it moves all that information into that layer. And now it's asking you, do you want to remove, basically purge the layer out, delete it, and you say yes. So then it removes it. All the information is in the correct layer. Just kind of a quick way of purging out layers that are not needed or that are not Hazen standard layers. I don't know if you guys had run into that one, but merge layers, a nifty way of, quick way of purging out layers that are sometimes we don't see information in it, or there could be like Zoom extension, you'll see something way out in space that it's far away from your project. You delete it, you still can't find information in there. So a quick way to say, okay, I really just want to clean up this layer. I want to remove that layer from my drawing, and just say merge layer. It's a quick way of getting that out of there. Okay. Another one that we'd like to talk to you guys about is block replace. So say you have a block from a server that it's not a Hazen standard and you want to replace it with the one that's Hazen standard. So block replace, I type in my commands, but block replace is one that you could use for that. It gives you a list of blocks that are in your drawing, or you can just pick it. Like I want to replace this one, say if this is not standard, for a standard one. I'm going to pick, you can pick it from the list or pick it from the drawing. I want to replace it to this one right here. And it will ask you, do you want to purge that block out of your drawing? Say, yeah, I want to purge it out of my drawing. And now it's removed. So block replace is a really cool way to clean up your drawings pretty easily, pretty fast. And then the last one I want to talk to you about is.
Hey, Nilza, can I ask one quick question? Does that change the scale on the annotative scale on it?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah, that's something else to watch out for, is the annotative scales on some of those blocks as they come over from survey.
Yeah, they do. They come in with a whole ton.
Yeah, you got to get those
but replacing the at least the blocks out of the drawing to the current Hazen standard ones is what we're looking for.
Super
right?
handy. Oh no, that's super handy for like
Block replace
sewer manholes, storm manholes.
Yep. Just
Thanks.
a really quick way of going through your drawing and cleaning that stuff up, because you don't have to go search for them. It'll search the entire drawing for them. Okay. Another one I wanted to talk to you about was I'm going to add, because this one doesn't have any. My drawing crashed recently. I'm going to select them. And I'm going to add an additional scale to this, just because you guys have seen this before, right? You select it, and sorry. What am I missing here?
Swap your scale to 100 and then back to 10 and see if it does it, unless you already have your variable set.
Oh, that's what it is.
Yeah, you already have the variable set of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I know you guys have seen this before where you select a block and it blows up on your screen and you can't see anything else except for
Uh-huh.
yeah. There is a setting called selection anode display that will control this. So the command is selection anode display, and it's a variable, so you only set it once. Set it to 0, and that will take care of it. Very, very handy. I've seen this. I've seen this in other drawings before. So, face files. You guys run into this?
I have.
Yeah, for sure. It
a
makes
lot.
drawings harder to read
Yep.
when you're clicking on those things. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's a variable, so you only have to set it once, not for drawing. Right. We're going to do some screen shares with survey information. So I'll let Jesse handle this part.
Thank you. Let me pull over our agenda here. And try to move this off my screen. Okay. So the first thing we wanted to bring up was something that Kevin also mentioned. Just staying up to date on Teams post. That is where we're posting all of our information for our programs, any kind of SOPs or workflow updates. You can find that on the team site. We recommend obviously checking that at least once a week, but if you have your notifications turned on, you should get an alert when something's posted. But you can also check it by just clicking on the activity button in your team site, and you can get a quick list of posts that maybe you haven't visited yet. Those are usually shown in bold in Teams. Another way to search for previous posts, like if you know that a post was made, you can use a search bar in Teams. The one at the very top of your Teams page up here does all your messages and all your posts. The one inside of the channel, like for instance over here, or if I'm in a Teams channel, allows you to search just the channel that you're in, this button here. So just a couple of ways to quickly see previous post. If you know you're looking for something specific like desktop connector, you can type it in here, or you can type it into a specific channel here and search to find those. So just a reminder on how to find things and how to stay up to date. Okay. Just revisiting some of our workflows and discussing how we approach planning for our project, ordering the survey, and then what to do with that survey once we get it. This is very important to our project setups for all civil and conveyance projects. We are talking about real datums, real located information, and that's why it's important. And then later it plays into Revit as well when we do our shared coordinates with the Revit team. So we want to make sure we get these right. The first thing we want to talk about is pre-planning for the project. We have put some links in here that will help us out. And right here, we're saying engineers and PMs, basically working with your engineering team. Hopefully they're getting you plugged in early enough in a project to, provide assistance with these things. But we have a pre-survey project checklist that will help, facilitate discussions with the engineers about what our deliverable is going to be, what is the client expecting, does the client have their own standards? If they do, what are they providing? Are they going to provide us with a CTB file? Or are they just saying, here's our title block, make it look like that? do they have drawing templates? Do their drawing templates have Civil 3D styles, or are we going to use our own styles for a project, or edit our styles to match a client standard? So these are things that we need to discuss at the very beginning of a project before we start setting up any kind of design files. Before we do any type of design on a project, we need to make sure that we have our information in the correct location, because what happens is when we move forward without doing these steps is we have to back up and sometimes redo work. So the basically pre-survey checklist is helping us have those discussions with the engineering team. What's our datum going to be? Does this client have a local datum or some sort of transformation of a state plane coordinate that we need to be talking about before we order the survey? How are we going to plot it? Do they want aerial in the background? Basically, all of these things to discuss with our engineering team before we even talk about survey. Then we move into survey scope documentation, usually these two items, which is our survey scope, which is what we're sending to the surveyor, along with a cover letter to the surveyor, usually is handled by the engineers. But again, we can help them and have discussions about what datum we're going to be using and the particulars of what we want to get back, especially if we're following Hazen standard. In addition to these two items, we want to make sure that the surveyor is getting information on how to follow our standards, which is going to come with the survey request package. So this PDF will help us basically convey to the surveyor what we want to get back. And this is the deliverable information that we want to get back. Typically, we would put this in the email to the surveyor along with that survey scope documentation and the cover letter and the zip file. The zip file contains this information, which gives them a survey seed file, a PDF of what our Hazen legend looks like, a CTV file, basically everything that they need to follow our standard. So it's important that all these pieces get to the surveyor so that we don't get that deliverable that doesn't look anything like our standard that we have to move forward with because we're already behind schedule. And the engineer says, just make it work. And then we have to spend days, updating that information. That's why it's important to get all of this information set and request it from the surveyor from the very beginning. Because if we push back on a surveyor and say, oh, we forgot to give this to you, but this is how we want it, that's extra work for them. And obviously that's extra cost for us. So it's important that we work with our engineering team and get all that information pre-planned. So any questions on pre-planning and kind of what we've talked about here? Is there anything unfamiliar, anything that you guys want to talk about as far as getting this information to the surveyor? Any struggles that you're experiencing and trying to get that back in our format? Okay.
The only thing I've seen, Jesse, really is sometimes the PMs just don't take the time to do it, and they've gone ahead and signed a contract with survey,
Right.
or it's already come
Right.
in, and so yeah, it's just kind of keeping the buzz up that exists.
Exactly.
When you talk with them
Yeah.
about new projects.
Yeah, if you hear about a new project coming, be thinking in your brain, okay, I need to talk to them because I want to make sure they have all of these things and we can get this.
It'll
the very
save
start.
everyone a lot of frustration if you can catch it.
Absolutely.
As soon as you
That's
hear
a good
it.
point. That's a good
Just-
point. Yeah.
And I kind of have it on my desktop. Where, every time we make an update, I keep a file in a zip updated on my desktop, and as soon as I hear something, usually I'll just shoot it out to them.
Yeah.
Heard you're starting a
that's
new
perfect.
project, or is it a new project? Here, make sure you please include this. And
Yes, that's perfect.
it's a
Thank you, Mark. That's a good point.
10-second operation, save a lot of hassle.
Right. So once we get past the part where we're planning, we've ordered the survey, now we have a survey deliverable in hand, we need to first take a peek at that survey. I mean, immediately when you open that survey, you're going to say, this isn't our standard, or it's kind of our standard, or it looks pretty good. Maybe we have to swap out some blocks and change a couple of line types to just make sure everything is set to by layer and that the line weight is set to by layer. Maybe we have to make some minor adjustments. That's the hope, right? Especially if we get all of these things in order as we're ordering the survey. So we want to check it, make sure that it meets our standards that we set up for this project, and also the project needs. Does it fully cover the project area? Did we get the manhole information for what we're tying into? Just making sure that it has the content that we need to do the proposed design. So that's kind of step one. Step two would then be going through and reviewing that survey a little more in depth and giving the engineer and the PM feedback about what we might be missing, or, hey, we noticed these couple of things. Do you want us to clean that up, or do you want to push back on the surveyor and ask them to update the file? Definitely some information in survey that should not be, I'll say, left to us would be building survey content as far as connecting dots for line work, building surfaces that should be on the surveyor. They know what they need that surface to look like. They know what shots they took and how that edge of pavement line should look. We shouldn't be sketching that in. We shouldn't be building survey surfaces. So this survey deliverable checklist, and we'll just open that really quick too and look at it on the screen. It's a starting point. Will we have all of these things on every project? Probably not, but at least it gives you kind of some guidance of what to look for the content that's there, and make sure that it is fully, up to our standards and provides enough information. So we should be seeing a drawing file. We should have a 3D surface, whether it's in the drawing file or they've provided it in a separate file, which is an XML, or a TIN with the corresponding point file that goes along with that TIN, as long as they provide it to us in a way that we can plug it into our files. They're supposed to give us a PDF printout of the survey that has their statement of accuracy that states that they are saying, I surveyed this is accurate to this level of design, or I'm sorry, what am I trying to say here? Basically to the right level of accuracy that they are certifying. So this is one of the things that we struggle to get, that they should be providing to us. So just a reminder, it's on the checklist. And anything else that they provide us just as extra. Sometimes they'll give us their field forms or copies of things that they've taken, or maybe they've taken a photo of an odd area that might help, us visualize what that's going to look like. Then we go into talking about datum. Do they have a local transformation? Basically what to look for. Is all the content there? Is it labeled? Does it provide enough information? And then typically, I save this in the project, and it's also easier to send to an engineer and just say, hey, this is what we've got. You can make notes on here. You can do it in Bluebeam, whatever you want, just to help, again, guide you in reviewing that survey and making sure that it is, up to the standards for the project. Okay, so beyond that, that survey drawing that we receive, we should be saving that into as received from the surveyor on this date. At that point, the number one thing we don't want to do is save that and start using it as a base file, because that is the surveyor's file of what they exported from their programs and tools that they use to build that drawing. So it has lots of background information and extra information that we don't want in our base files. We're trying to keep our base files clean because they're the basis of everything that we're going to be designing, and it's going to go into all of our contract drawing sheets. So this is where I'm sure you've heard us talk about quarantine drawings before, But just to expand on that a little bit and kind of explain exactly what we're talking about there, creating a quarantine drawing, when we say that, we're referring to opening the survey drawing and then also opening a fresh Civil 3D template. So using your ribbon, new drawing, opening that template, like always starting all of our files from this template. Base file, sheet drawing, doesn't matter. To give us our clean, fresh Hazen template. And then using the survey drawing to get content out of. So you can copy that, you can W block it out. Obviously, if you copy it, you want to make sure your base point is 0, 0, 0. And putting that into a quarantine drawing so that we can clean it up. And that's why we're calling it a quarantine drawing. So at that point, you can replace your blocks, put things on the right layers, merge layers, change line types, basically cleaning that drawing up to making it our standards, our styles, and not bringing forward anything that could be causing issues from the survey drawing. So it's just kind of in between the survey drawing and our base files, where we're just making sure that content is ready to be used in base files. So that's what we mean when we say quarantine drawing. So does anybody have any questions on that or that process, or why we would want to kind of have that buffer between the survey drawing and our base files?
Because also along with that, Jesse, is you can purge a drawing, you can audit a drawing, and you think that it's a clean drawing. It's not clean enough.
Right.
It needs to be copied, all that information copied into a new template, or W block that information out, because there's always background information that comes with somebody
All of
else's
this,
drawing.
all of that. And there's all these settings in there. That's, I mean, even settings down to these feature settings, all of these settings on every single piece of a drawing file could bring forward lots of issues for us when drawings start crashing and we're having issues and we can't identify why something is, I have to audit this drawing all the time. It has 25 scales in it or whatever it might be. It pulls forward all of that content if you just use their file. So if you're using their file, you're not going to get our background. You're not going to get our preset layers, our abbreviations, and our background settings. So that's a good point. Okay, so beyond the quarantine drawing, so now we've ordered the survey, we got our survey deliverable, we're moving forward with cleaning that survey up because the engineer said, yep, go forward, set up your base files. At this point, after you have cleaned that information up, you're ready to move forward with setting up a project reference template, which we've talked about that before, and we could touch on that again today, and then also creating those base files. So the reference template, for those that aren't familiar or new to our meetings, the reference template is basically, again, a fresh template that we turn into a reference template for the project, and it gets referenced into all drawings right here. And what that does is allow us to control all of these settings that we've been talking about, all of our styles and settings for all drawing files, base files, sheet, contract drawings, whatever it might be. We can push display styles, new layers, blocks, like if we need to edit a block, label styles, basically anything that is in that template, we can immediately change in one spot and it will get referenced in everything that is pulling that reference template in. So it's very powerful. It's super useful. So we really want to make that part of our practice as far as setup. So step one, after you have your quarantine drawing done, step one, create your reference template, and then you move forward with your base file creation. And then we have links in here of documentation to help with both of those things. We've done presentations on both of these. We have SOPs, and then we also have just a document that talks about what goes into each base file and how to name those base files. So is this news to anybody? Do you want me to open any of these things and kind of go over those? Are you guys good with just exploring it on your own?
I mean, maybe a minute to show how the base file or the template works, maybe, or the naming convention of the template. That is so critical. Such
Yeah,
critical
so
stuff.
yeah, that's a good point too. So in this, let's just open the SOP. So in the SOP for the reference template, bump this up a little bit so we can all see it. Also, something else that Kevin told me the other day that I think would be helpful for everybody. When somebody is sharing their screen in Teams, down here in the bottom left by my name, there's like a plus symbol. You can zoom in and pan around on my screen if you need to zoom into an area and it doesn't look large enough, or you want to zoom in on something like what's the date on that. You can zoom in and pan around on the screen share. So something to keep in mind. I just learned this the other day. I was like, that's super helpful. So the reference template that we're referring to is what we call the master reference template. And when you've been working in a drawing file, you might see these little blue paper clips. That's an indication that there's a reference template in the drawing that you're working in. And this document goes through kind of what a reference template is, how to identify it, what to do when you encounter this message, and how to name it. So once you open a new template, we delete this and we use our ribbon here. There's a little button that says reference template caution. You just push that button and it inserts a block. It's important to keep this in here, okay? Because if somebody opens this template, we want them to see this. Caution, you're about to change everything for this project. So that's why it's very, very important. If you explode this block, you can then update the project number, and that's really all you need to do. And then you can just save this as your reference template. From that point forward, any style changes, if you want to control your parts list content, whatever you want to control with this reference template, you can do so moving forward. You just have to make sure that when you create your base files, that you're adding that reference template to the base file. So you do that through this button. And once it's in there, it's ready, it's moving forward, and all the changes can be made here, and they will automatically be pushed to this drawing the next time you open it. If you have a base file or any drawing open and a reference template update is made, you will see an error here and you just reload it and say, okay. So that document will help us walk through how to set it up, how to name it, and how to put it into your drawing files. Super easy. It's like a backup plan, and it's just a super great tool to help us control things, especially when you've got hundreds of sheets that you've decided, I need to change something. Well, you can change it here and it's going to update it everywhere. And then of course we also have our, I think this document is also helpful as well. Just going through how to name our base files, what goes into each base file. If you've got multiple surfaces, you want to get a large project, you can split your surfaces up in a TX and a TN to keep those things separated. If you have multiple types of improvements, how to name base files for multiple types of piping plan base files. So I think this document is also helpful for figuring out what you're going to be naming these files and then going through the process of setting up your base files. So any questions on any of that? Anything you guys want to discuss regarding setup and how to best prepare for projects. Yeah, Brent.
Yeah, so I feel like most of what I've seen has been like links in documents like this. So how would I just go and browse to and find all of these documents through SharePoint
So that's a
or
good
Teams?
question. Basically, everything that we link is going to live in these two sites. So what we've done when we link, we're linking to. It takes you to SharePoint, but Teams is SharePoint. So that's why it's important to make sure your alerts and everything are on, because when we post something, you'll get an alert that we've posted something, because we'll at specific groups. But if you are in the Hazen BIM community, if it is a SOP that applies to multiple users, meaning Revit and Plant 3D and Civil 3D, it's typically going to be in the general files. And then you'll see some SOP, like an SOP folder and awareness document. This is for, hey, it applies to everybody. Like something like a contract drawing submittal SOP, addendum SOP, you'll find those in the general folder because they apply to more than just Civil 3D users. ACC docs folder, again, you can find SOP documentation here. Civil 3D folder, files, general folder has awareness SOPs. The civil folder, SOPs, awareness. So basically everything that we're linking, you can find by exploring the sites. We're just streamlining it so you don't have to go to so many folders to find it.
Gotcha. Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you.
I've also cheated and downloaded items that I know that are new or been updated and put it on my OneDrive, so I can kind of have it in one spot with me, and then I periodically will go check it to make sure it's still the same.
And just for the
quick
general,
reference.
yeah. I mean, obviously I wouldn't recommend it just in case something changes, but it's not a bad, as long as you're paying attention and you know you have the latest and greatest thing.
Yep.
Which Mark, I know you do.
I check it a lot, but
Yeah.
just when we're flinging documents around, or I'm trying to like, hey, and two, sometimes it kind of benchmarks. For a couple projects that like Bustamante was so different, I saved out a lot of how we constructed that with the I guess the standard at that time, so we can understand where we came from. So kind of was a moving target when I got that thing. So this is really nice.
Yeah. And we are working on a training plan of sorts where basically it's going to be a single documentation, and it's going to be a big documentation, but it's going to have a streamlined list of everything in one spot. Again, it's going to have a lot of links because they do live in all these different places depending on what they are, but it at least puts everything in one spot. We do have a quick reference guide that might be handy too. We try to keep it updated, but it basically streamlines some of that as well with a bunch of links. So, but that's a good question on where to find all of this. If you don't know where to go to look, that's where I would explore. And just for those that haven't explored it yet, on the ribbon, we also have links to our community team sites. So, and links to a couple of documents that would be helpful, like BIM execution plan, electronic release form, and the seal authorization form. So Niels, I'll bounce it back to you. But anybody feel free to reach out with any questions at any time.
All right. Now we have open discussions. Anybody want to share any information, tips and tricks you want to share with the rest of the group for next month, or something that you're using that could be useful for everyone else? No. All right. Our next meeting will be Wednesday, August 6th. Appreciate you guys joining.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. Thanks, Nilda.
Mhm.